Florida State swims in what size pond in terms of the transfer portal? What kind of world are we living in terms of investment? You see these articles coming out from On3 and other places that the so-and-so is expected to be the biggest competitor in the portal. Florida's name has been thrown out there, Miami, Colorado. I'm sure Auburn will be super aggressive because, they keep stinking. Where do you think we're going to swim in the grand scheme of college football in the portal?
I know for a fact the Battle's End has decided to go all in. That is evidenced all around us right now. I think that they are going to be uber aggressive in the portal. It's the last best shot for Mike Norvell. So they cannot afford, just as they weren't chintzy with the assistant coaches, they cannot afford to be chintzy here with portal players. They've got to get 20 to 40 quality players in here to help supplement this roster and rid themselves of this, what we just saw. I think Florida State will be a major player financially in the portal. I think they are willing to go to battle with almost anybody.
Okay, so big game hunting. Okay, that's fair enough. Let's see. Second down. In terms of Nebraska players, blind guess. Florida State will bring in blank Nebraska players from the portal.
Yeah, that's a better question, I think, for Langston and some of the other guys on our staff who do so good at researching this stuff. I obviously a few, I would think, right? I mean, that stands to reason, but I don't know how many. I don't have a good answer for that. I just threw an incomplete pass on second down, but honestly, and he was wide open. I just missed him. But I'll say 3.
It sounds, I think at least 3 was what Michael said on the recruiting show the other night. But he also was talking about what my third down question will be. Would you say it's fair to say that every position group is open for business for the portal? Florida State would bring in a player at every single position group, or do you think that there's one or two that I don't know that we need too much help there?
Well, I'll say that there are a few positions that we don't need a lot of help. One of them is, I think, in the secondary. Listen, if you can get a great player, you always bring in a great player.
Give me a safety, please.
Yeah,
safety.
Yeah, I would take a safety. But no, every other position, I'm going heavy and getting after it. Now, we know that starts in the trenches. And at the time that this airs, Tom, there's a chance that, a guy like Patrick Kudus is somebody that Florida State hopefully is hardcore going after, maybe even already has. I don't know. I will protect us here by saying that. But for those that don't know, he's a guard from Arkansas, one of the best interior linemen in the entire SEC. And listen, we had the conversation about what this offense is going to look like and what Malzahn runs and what's required of that group. And I'll tell you, one of the things when you go down the rabbit hole of Malzahn's offense is you read a lot from other coaches and people who analyze it. They'll tell you need great guard play. You need to be able to have athletic guard play, guys that can get out and pull. And really, this is all heavily based on the run game. Buddy, go hardcore on these interior linemen. Make a run like there. But no, every position group is open.
Now that we've had a little bit of time, I guess this is fourth down already. Now that we've had a little bit of time to consume these coaching changes, and at the time we're talking, it's 2 coordinators plus pot roast, Terrence Knighton for the defensive line, who was announced this morning. You would give Florida State what grade for how? Again, it's not about the outcome; it's about just the guys they chose, the signals they're sending. Give me a grade on what Florida State has done to overhaul the staff.
Well, I think the grade on the defensive side of the ball is an A so far. You brought in the antithesis of Adam Fuller. You brought in somebody who's going to be uber aggressive and create pressure from everywhere, and one who is going to stop the run and create confusion on third down. None of the things that Adam Fuller did. So, these are all things that I'm really hoping pay off immediately. I think Florida State got a steal with Coach White. That was a big deal. We were very fortunate that he was miserable at Nebraska because Matt Rule's impossible to work for. We now have overwhelming evidence of that, by the way, because that is a lateral move in essence for him to come to Tallahassee, Nebraska seems to be upwardly mobile. We'll see if Florida State is. But for him to do that tells you he didn't like working there. He did not like working for him. So I think it's a steal. I think you replaced your defensive coordinator with a guy who is proven in the Power Four to consistently produce top 25 defenses. That is huge. I feel very good about that. I'll grade that an A. Knighton is a guy that everybody says is an up-and-comer in the business and potentially where he could make the biggest leap in his career, but also ours here in Tallahassee, is in recruiting because he has the personality for it. Guys love working in that room with him. There's a lot of positive talk about who he is. So let's see him get on the trail and become that guy. So that side of it so far is an A. And then you throw in the mix that you got rid of Randy Shannon, and we should all be singing hallelujah. So that's a beautiful thing. Now, as far as offensively, listen, I've got mixed emotions about the Gus Malzahn thing. I don't know which version of Gus Malzahn we're going to get. There's a good version. There's a version that routinely produces one of the best rushing attacks in America. I think he's capable of doing that again. I don't know what we're going to get from him from a recruiting standpoint, so I'm very interested to see what else they do around him. But I do know this. He's been innovative his whole career, and I know that he's got to feel freed up. Like a lot of these coaches who've made more money than they could ever spend, and they're on the back half of their career, the last third of their career. I think you're going to see this now on because of what's happened. I think the game is getting younger and younger and younger for head coaches because it's tireless work that you have to put in to recruit and then re-recruit your own roster. I think guys like Gus and good minds like that who just don't have it in them to run the whole kit and caboodle anymore could get freed up to be their most creative that they've been in a long time by unburdening themselves with all that extracurricular and now just coming here and putting together game plans, calling plays, and really just getting your offense to understand what you want them to do each week. We could get the best version of Gus Malzahn. We'll see. But for now, I'll give that grade a B.
I will go to the fan down portion of this, and this is making up for on Wednesday because the show was so busy. We had a few super chats that we missed before the show was over. So Russell, thank you, Russell, for the contributions, plural. He wants to know about two position groups. I will start with wide receiver. He wants to know the passing game outlook without a wide receivers coach. He understands, but you got Destin Hill, Hakeem Williams, Elijah Moore, BJ Gibson, LaWayne McCoy, a bunch of kids that you brought in the offseason. Do they go into the portal for more? Just your general outlook of what that's going to look like. I know you need to go get a quarterback, but just on the passing side, on the receiver side.
Well, certainly they brought in the kid now from UCF, so that's good. You end up getting him to come over, and I'll be very curious to see. Obviously, they've got to be more productive than they were this past year. That was an embarrassment to receivers everywhere. I couldn't believe what we didn't have. And when you lay it out like that, by the way, Tom, go ahead and say those names again out loud right from the top, because when you lay it bare, it sounds a little bit more inviting, doesn't it? Go ahead.
Sure. So Destin Hill, Hakeem Williams.
Starts right there.
And it continues on with Elijah Moore, BJ Gibson, LaWayne McCoy. And you did bring in Jordan Scott, 6'7" out of JUCO. So you would think an earlier return for a JUCO player, and then a host of large dudes when you're talking about high school recruits that probably are going to be a year or two away. And that's to say nothing of Landon Thomas and Amari Williams, who's going to get a look at defensive end in the spring, is Amari Williams, according to Mike Norvell this week. But there's a lot to sort through there. Russell's second contribution, thanks again, Russell, is about the running back room. He's saying, so with Chroma, what does our running back depth look like? Who leaves? Because we've got Cam, Mekhi Danzy, Sam Singleton, Roydell Williams could potentially be back for another year. Usman Chroma, you've got a lot of people, and Gus tends to find a bell cow. So how do you sort that and make sense and reconcile that particular position?
You may have just signed your bell cow. I mean, I think you got a kid here that is special. I think you may have signed your bell cow. And I think that some of the names on that list may take it on down the road. I'm not suggesting that, listen, running back rooms have to be deep these days. And you're about to run an offense that is obviously predicated on being able to run the ball and run the ball effectively and run the ball a lot. Now, your quarterback takes on a responsibility there too, running the ball, but you're going to need three very dependable running backs at a position in which there's a ton of wear and tear. So maybe you keep your top 4 of that group. And if that's a kid, if there's a kid that's 5th or 6th in that group, he may take it on down the road. But the most dynamic of those kids right off the bat, Danzy is outrageously fast. They're not going to get rid of him. He's not going anywhere. They're going to find a way to utilize him in the pass game as well because he can catch the ball. And with Cromall, you just got probably your most well-balanced running back on the entire team right there. The kid you just picked up, he's over 200 pounds already. He can hit the ground running.
So here's just sorting through what Gus has done with his running back room the last few years. R.J. Harvey has been his stud for multiple years. This year he has 1,500 yards after 12 games. Their next closest running back is Miles Montgomery with 293. So, I mean, that is I have my guy kind of set up in their running game. Their second leading rusher is actually Ja'Cory Brown. Remember him, the quarterback. Mm-hmm. Last year, R.J. Harvey had 1,400 yards rushing, but the next closest guy had 500. So you did have a second fiddle running back in that situation. And then back in 2022, again, recalling that these are years where UCF finished in the top 20 in the country in yards per carry across all running backs, across all carries. You had a two-headed monster with Harvey, who was emerging. He nearly had 800 yards and 120 carries. Nice. And then Isaiah Bowser, I'm sure you'll remember him as well. He had 800 yards on 200 carries. So he did have split returns a couple of years ago, but he favored one over the other. We'll see. I don't think it's going to look like Norvell's system where you have like 3 plays for one dude and 4 plays for another. At least I hope that's not the case next year.
You and I both. Find your best players and play them.